Hello and welcome to Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer, and welcome back for episode number 25. We took about a month off or so, a bit of a break for the holidays and for early January. But we're here, we're back, we're full of energy and really excited with some really awesome guests that I have coming up over the next few weeks, hopefully a few months. Did take off a long break, hoping I can kind of relax and just kind of forget about the podcast for a few weeks. But much like everything else in my life, I ended up working doubly hard on the podcast as not sure if any of you have seen in social media, but I'm actually sponsoring a professional wrestling show. By me, I mean Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer, which is, I guess, me. So by default, yes, I'm sponsoring a wrestling show. So for those of you that haven't seen it or aren't aware, PWJ Cards will be having a show on January 26th at the Mecca in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. I'll be the official match sponsor for a three-way women's match between WWE ID wrestler Zeta Steel, AEW star Deonna Purrazzo, and up-and-comer The Hyan. Should be fun. I'm not sure really how it's going to go yet. There should be lots of signage with my logos on it. They're going to announce the podcast right before that match. I'll actually have a table. So my goal is to record a podcast right before the show, see if I can get some fans or some wrestlers to talk. Not sure how it's going to work out yet, how the Wi-Fi or the data is going to be, but I'm hoping for the best. It could be some fun. My buddies Daniel and John will be there too, helping me out. So I'm really looking forward to that. Got some new podcast merch to wear at the show. So if you're at the show and you see me with one of my new podcast T-shirts, stop by, say hi. I'd love to chat you up and even get you in the podcast if you want. Also, new friends of the show, Colby and Mr. Flake. So my younger daughter Allison is a freshman in high school. A couple of days ago, she said, "Hey, Dad, can you get me some more of the podcast stickers and trading cards?" Which, in case anybody's interested, we do have new trading cards for the podcast. Pretty cool. It's kind of like a business card, but it's made like a sports trading card. I said, "Sure." Gave it to her. A couple of days ago, I got a text message from her with a picture of one of her teachers, one of her classmates holding it and talking about how they enjoy the podcast. So definitely love to share the love and love to hear about that. So Colby and Mr. Flake, thank you so much. Keep listening. Definitely follow us on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Give me any feedback, any comments you have on the show. Send me a DM if you want to be a guest, them or anybody else for that matter. Always looking for new content and new guests. Lastly, before I introduce my guest for the week, who I'm really excited to talk to, wanted to talk about kind of an epilogue to one of the episodes that I had last year. So John Germain and myself, I think it was like episode 23 or so, did the best and worst movies of 2024. I did see a couple of movies over the break. One I thought was great, and surprisingly so. I saw Mufasa, the new live-action Disney movie, which I thought was really cool. I went into it with low expectations, but it blew me away. Really, really enjoyed it. And weirdly, considering I didn't even watch the first live-action Lion King, it was fun. On the flip side, I saw Y2K, which was pretty much about the Y2K bug. For those of you that aren't aware, back in the end of 1999, everybody thought the world was going to end when the clocks hit 2000. And this movie, not surprisingly, that's basically what happened. The robots took over. Great premise, interesting concept. Love the Fred Durst cameo from Limp Bizkit, but the joke was kind of old very quickly. So wasn't really my cup of tea. I talked to somebody at work today who watched it and they thought it was decent. On my recommendation, which is weird because I don't know that I really recommended it as a great movie, but if nothing else, fun to talk about movies with people at work and such. So reminder for everybody, we are once again on Instagram at Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can find the show on all podcast platforms. That's video on Spotify or YouTube. YouTube would be at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Also on Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, pretty much anywhere you could find a podcast. Hopefully you could find this show. Additionally, the email address for this show is everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. So if you have a business interest that you want to reach out to me about, so you want to send me something, whatever, email me there. My personal Instagram is at Seltzer77. You can find all things Jeff Seltzer at jeffseltzer.com for all of your Jeff Seltzer questions, requests, or whatever else like that. With that said, I do also lastly want to thank everybody for joining. If it's your first time listening to the show or watching the show, thank you so much. I appreciate your coming and checking it out. I hope you enjoy it. If you do like this episode, there are 24 previous episodes, lots of different topics. You may not necessarily like every episode, but find a topic you like, whether it be Disney World, whether it be wrestling, whether it be Halloween Horror Nights, family, flying an airplane, whatever it is, find it and take a listen. Let me know what you think. For those of you that have listened before and are coming back, thank you so much as always. Really appreciate it. Definitely continue to tell your friends, your family, your coworkers' family, your friends, coworkers, whoever else like that about this show. Definitely trying to continue to spread the word about Everybody Has a Story pod with Jeff Seltzer. With that said, I'm really excited to welcome my guest for this week, author, writer, Katya Summers. Katya, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I am great. So, real quick background on this. So, Katya Summers is an author, um, longtime friend of myself. Really excited to finally have her on the podcast. Friends with her, friends with her husband, Mr. Summers. Lots of cool things happening in her life. So, Katya, for those of you that aren't familiar with Katya, can you give us a little background on who you are?
So I've been writing since I was 8 years old and never thought I was good enough to publish. And then got older, realized, dreams don't always work out the way we want, but that there was one dream that there was nothing stopping me pursuing in the industry of independent publishing in this day and age. And so I said, you know what? I am good enough. I am going to write a book, and now I've written 3 of them. And I like to joke, there's nothing like turning 30 and losing your job and career in the same year to make you change direction. So yeah, now I've got 3 books out, with plans for many more on the way. I'd like to say I started writing when I was 8 and I never stopped. That's not true. I stopped for many years. I've only recently gotten back into it, but now I have no intention of ever stopping again.
That's awesome, Katya. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'll say this, and I'm sure you probably can relate to this as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, the fact that the internet has done a lot of great things, right? Like you and I met, I think, via Twitter or X years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Social media is a huge thing. The fact that I have a podcast, like years ago, like I wouldn't have gotten more than 7 people to listen to what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people can get out there and hear it. You're able to self-publish. You're able to kind of do things that, let's say, 30 or 40 years ago would have been a lot more challenging to do.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, great that everything's evolving, working out the way that it is. So with that said, let's maybe take a step back to like your writing process. So as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned before, you're a writer. You've released, I think you said 3 books so far, right?
Yes.
Cool.
3 books and 2 anthology pieces.
Awesome. So let's take a step back and think about the writing process initially. So when Katya wakes up one day and says, I want to write a book, like what does the process look like for you? Do you kind of like do like rough notes? Do you kind of all story? Do you start at the end? Like what does this look like?
So there's what we call pantsters and plansters. So plansters plan their writing. Pantsters kind of fly by the seat of their pants. I am definitely on the planning side of things. I use an outlining software. It's called Plotter Pro. I have affiliate links if anybody wants one. But no, it's super useful. I really like it. It's outlining software. You can build series Bibles like with all your characters, all your notes. Basically, it's just a nice, convenient place to put it all. And so I actually outline a book start to finish. I tried writing without outlines, and then I was making progress, but I wasn't 100% sure where I was going. Hurricane Ryan, I actually turned around. As soon as I got Plotter Pro, I outlined it in 1 weekend. I wrote Hurricane Ryan in 17 days.
Wow.
That's insane. No, like NaNoWriMo is 50,000 words in 30 days. Although NaNoWriMo is bad now, we don't do that anymore. But I wrote 90,000 in 17 days.
Wow.
Clearly, I had too much time on my hands, but that's okay. So yeah, I outline things start to finish. I have a plan with these are the characters, this is where we're going, but also things change as you go along. So for instance, in Hurricane Ryan, the ending originally was slightly different than it currently is. I don't want to spoil anything for someone who hasn't read my work, but basically there's a villain in Hurricane Ryan that originally was not necessarily going to get her, what was coming to her, and then over the course of the story, I had no choice but to change the ending because she deserved a bad ending. She deserved what wound up happening in the book. So you plan it out, but it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't write, but I'm not in charge. The characters are in charge and they're going to go where they want. I'm just kind of along for the ride to help them get there.
Nice.
I've talked on my own socials about Rescue Me when I was writing it. It's my most recent book. It's Seaside Cove #3. Zach and Sky, my 2 main characters, threw the outline out at around the 70,000 word mark, and I had to redo everything and figure out how to end it because they did not like the ending I had planned. And we got there in the end, and I'm quite proud of it.
Nice. So just taking a step back from a genre perspective, because obviously we have lots of different demos, lots of different ages that are listening.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like a romance type of books, or what type of style or genre would you kind of label it?
So this is suspense romance. If you're under 18, please get off this podcast. No, keep listening, but don't read my books. Definitely it is adults only. There's actually disclaimers on all my Amazon listings that these books are definitely adult oriented. There's lots of swearing, lots of not safe for work. So yeah, definitely aimed at adults. Don't let the cartoon covers fool you. No matter what anyone says, that does not mean a book is meant for children.
Nice. Good to know. So as you said, basically the characters kind of write themselves, you said, right? So you're kind of helping them on the journey, but for the most part, they kind of do their own thing.
Yes.
Sorry, go
ahead. It's my circus. They're my monkeys, but they're going to do what they want.
Nice. Nice. Do you like what are you influenced by? So like as you're writing it and as they're doing their thing, like are there other writers? Are there people in your life? Are there TV shows? Are there anything that kind of like influences like their journeys or where they go?
So yes and no.
Okay.
I will tell you, Mr. Summers is actually a better writer than I am. So he helps on occasion with some things, gives me some ideas or tweaking on some things. I'm a big fan of Helena Newberry. She's a suspense romance writer that I highly recommend if you enjoy romance, if you enjoy suspense. Her books are phenomenal. I learned a lot from reading her books, kind of like with setting the stakes and where how you have both thrill and suspense and action in with a romance story because like romantic comedies are wonderful, contemporary stories, those kind of hallmark feel good romance movies, they're wonderful, they're just not what I can write. I need some sort of outside force other than just like, oh, we can't be together because of reasons. That's just not the story I want to tell. I like those outside forces that are trying to keep people apart, and sometimes those outside forces are a hurricane. Sometimes those outside forces are just life and circumstance and working, and you don't have time or energy for a relationship and that sort of thing, but then you're coupling all that with, again, a hurricane, or armed gunmen in one of my books. It just kind of depends.
Got it. So if somebody were to say, I want to listen or I want to read more about what Katya Summers has, like, so you said you
Hmm.
have 3 books and
Hmm.
you have an anthology series.
Yes.
Where should they start? Like, what's the best place? Should they follow in the order you put them out? Is there kind of a different order? What would you suggest?
So I would start Hurricane Ryan Seaside Cove, which was my first book published in 2022. It will be out on audiobook. I really hope sometime in February. If not, it is coming this year. I'm actively working on it. Um, but it's at the beginning. So the books, they're all standalones. So you can read them by themselves and get a complete contained story. Like you could actually pick up Rescue Me and read it and know what is going on. However, because it's new characters. However, Zach, who's the main character of Rescue Me, shows up in Hurricane Ryan. And if you read Rescue Me, you're going to get some spoilers for some things that happened in the earlier book. So chronological order is best order,
Okay.
or publication order. It just, if you want to avoid spoilers. All my books and future projects are all set in the same universe. Kind of, I labeled it the Summersverse, like the Arrowverse. So they're all set in the same universe. So you get cameos and references and different things. So between the books and eventually between the series. My next book series I'm planning, I've already got a couple of crossovers worked in between Seaside and my next series.
That's really cool. So they are in the same universe. So as you said, there's crossovers, and so there is like even more than just Easter eggs. If somebody
Mhm.
reads them in order, there's stuff they'll reference. They're like, "Oh, that's great. I remember this from such and such."
Yes. And if you're familiar with Orlando, there are a million Easter eggs to find. There's a restaurant you and I have been to that's in Hurricane Ryan, actually.
Oh, nice, nice. So yeah,
So,
so background here, as I don't think we mentioned earlier. So Katya Summers does live in the Orlando area, let's say, and
mhm,
that's where she gets a lot of her, I guess, inspiration sometimes. So
mhm.
that's really cool.
Basically, I write about a beach resort set in Orlando. It's a fictional beach resort, although I do. There's a surf park being built that I swear they owe me royalties. It's fine. But I wanted to write about what I knew, and I know hospitality, I know tourism, and I also know the struggle of being somebody who only makes that kind of not that much an hour, but you're living your dreams. You're trying to follow those dreams and make things work and keep a roof over your head, and you find your family is 600 or 800 or even 1,000 miles away, and so you find family where you are, and so that's kind of the life, we call it, you know like just it's the hospitality industry and it's what we go through, so that's what I write about.
Got it. So you had said there were 3 books. There's the
Mhm.
anthology series. You had said that coming out sometime very, very soon is Hurricane Ryan in audio format.
Yes.
So we went through a little bit in terms of the original creative process, like how you
Hmm.
write a book, kind of how you story it, board it, and plan it from beginning to end. Like,
Hmm.
how does the audiobook come across? Like, do you wake up one day and you're like, okay, I think I've kind of shared my story in book form, but I think people would love to hear it in audio form, and then kind of like go through that. Or like, what does that process look like?
So, audiobooks for me are all about accessibility. There are people that, for whatever reason, they cannot sit down and read a book. They either don't, they're a new mom, they've got a baby in their hands, they don't have time to sit down and read. Maybe their eyes get tired with strain, so they can't read on a screen, or the print's too small. So, audiobooks are really about accessibility. And so, my goal will be to eventually have all of my books on audio, but it's kind of a huge undertaking. It's why there are thousands upon thousands of independently published ebooks, but there are less independently published audiobooks just because it's such a massive project to take on in addition to writing the book, and there's a lot of expense tied in with that. So it's going to be a slow process getting the rest of these on there. But I have 2 very talented narrators who are friends of mine, and I haven't actually revealed their names yet, so I'm going to hold on to that for the time being. But I will tell you they are involved with a local Orlando theater group, and they are some of the most talented performers I have ever met. And so having them bring Carly and Ryan to life has been a absolute delight and thrill. And there are plenty of times that I'm working on editing the audiobook because I do my own editing that I have to stop and go get Mr. Summers so he can hear how great it sounds.
Very cool. So you obviously have an actor and an actress.
Mhm.
Are they narrators? Are they reading it like a play? Kind of like how does that come out?
So it's what we call duet narration. So basically, there's different forms of narration. Some audiobooks you have one narrator, some audiobooks you have two. You can have where just, the guy does the guy chapters, the girl does the girl chapters, and they just do voices. What we do is our female narrator, she does all the female voices in the entire book. Our male narrator does all the male voices in the entire book. So depending on which chapter it is, you're cutting back and forth between the two. And so it's not so much a straight narration as you would find in a traditional audiobook necessarily put out. It's a little bit more like acting, but it's also not as far as the dramatized or graphic audiobooks that some of the romantasy books are famous for.
Nice. So you have a male and a female. Have you ever
Mhm.
thought about, or did you get the urge at all to do it yourself, or was it always, I want other people to do it for me?
Um, I'm good at a lot of things. Public speaking, yes. Narrating, talking slowly, and acting, not my thing whatsoever. I knew I was not going to be a good fit for this. Mr. Summers may have a book in his future, however.
Nice. So the physical books, the original ones, are available,
Mhm.
I assume, via Amazon.com, probably via
Yes.
Kindle as well, Kindle Unlimited.
Yes. So they are on Kindle Unlimited, which means if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, which is 11.99 ish a month, you can read as many books as you can in that time frame. And authors get paid by the page read. So as you're going through that book, that's how those authors make their money, as opposed to just paying a flat fee for the ebook. And so you can buy it digitally on ebook, you can read it on Kindle Unlimited, or you can order the paperbacks. I don't know which bookstore it is, but there is a bookstore that has ordered copies of my books. I just don't know where or which one. But hey, that's cool. It's in a bookstore somewhere.
Right.
But yeah, the easiest way to get them is off Amazon.com. I'm hoping to have signed copies off my website up and running in the not too distant future. But that's just kind of a lot of space and inventory to manage, and we're just not quite there yet. I'm hoping to be there soon.
Of course. And for those of you that are listening and not watching, her website is katyaSummers.com. That's KATYASUMMERS.com. You can also find her on Instagram at Katya Summers Author. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
That's also TikTok, Threads, all of those. That's the same URL on all of them.
Well, by the time this drops, TikTok may or may not still be a thing. So we'll have to see.
I'm aware. I'm ignoring that for the moment.
I'm hopeful myself.
Yeah.
I did have a TikTok viral video that went 2.5 million views last year. So I'm
Mhm.
hopeful that it sticks around. It's also the way that I usually consume most of my videos. But let's hope for the best and see what happens, right?
Yes. So I was just getting good at TikTok marketing for books. So
I mean, we do what we can. I'm sure if TikTok does fall, not to get too deep into it, but if TikTok does go away, something else will replace it. Hopefully not
yes.
Reels. Hopefully something else will, but we'll see how it lands.
We'll find out.
We
So
will.
it's going to be, that's the other fun thing about being an independent author. As soon as you think you know what you're doing, the industry, the market, something in the world changes and you get to figure it all out again.
Welcome to MySpace. Absolutely.
Yes.
So in the next month or two, or at some point soon, you had said that Hurricane Ryan should be available via audio.
Yes.
Is that something that'd be available like audible.com or kind of like
So
what?
my plan is it'll be on Audible, Spotify, Apple Books, pretty much anywhere, like how this podcast is available anywhere you can get a podcast. I intend to have it basically anywhere you can get an audiobook, you will be able to find Hurricane Ryan. It will not be an Audible exclusive.
Nice. So for yourself, I know, you obviously read, you've got books, you've got the
Mhm.
audio coming out soon. How do you most like to consume books? Like I'll say real quick for myself, I'm not much of a reader.
Mhm.
My vision's always been bad. It's gotten worse as I've gotten older. But for me, it just doesn't really hold my attention. I've tried audiobooks as well. I've only honestly gotten through one audiobook in my entire life. I've tried multiples, but the problem that I have is the time that I have most to myself to listen to audiobook is in the car. And if I
Mhm.
zone out for like 30 seconds, I am completely lost and don't know where it is. So it doesn't really land for me. Like
Mhm.
how do you like to consume this kind of stuff?
So I have Kindle Unlimited. I read on my phone. I just use the Kindle app on my phone. I read so much and so fast. I physically do not have the storage space in my house for the amount of books I consume on a regular basis, and I just don't have that literally we don't have the shelf space. So I do 90 probably 8 of my reading on Kindle Unlimited or Kindle books. I do audiobooks on occasion. I like to listen to them. My husband and I will listen to them in the car, usually on road trips for long drives.
Okay.
And so when we're listening to it together, it's a lot easier for me to pay attention. And it's a good way to get him to read books that I wouldn't necessarily be able to get him to read. Like, for instance, right now, we're actually listening to Outlaw's Promise, which is my favorite book of all time. It just came out on audio. It's by Helena Newberry. I mentioned her earlier. Weirdly, Seaside Cove kind of came from Outlaw's Promise a little bit. And so the fact that I'm now getting to share that with him has been really fun.
Nice. So, question on this. So, from a marketing
Mhm,
perspective, I know you mentioned
mhm,
that you're just getting into TikTok and getting good at TikTok. Plus, you've got Instagram and pretty much every other social media that's out there.
mhm,
What's generally your mindset in terms of marketing? I mean, I'll say from a podcast perspective, like I've tried lots of different things. Like I'm on social media, obviously across the board. I'll talk to anybody at work
mhm.
who will listen to me about the podcast. I've created hats that I'm wearing right now. I started trading cards, stickers, whatever else like that. Like for you, like do you have like a marketing idea or usage that you like the most? You kind of throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Kind of like where's your head at?
It's a lot of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. There's a if there's any other authors listen to this book, Marketing with Courtney, her Patreon is amazing. It gives you tons of ideas for posts. She'll give you social media templates, all that stuff. So I use a lot of her stuff. And so lately I went through and I've done a bunch of reels over the last couple months that and TikToks and trying to get those out there in the world while I still can. And so it's just a matter of I try to look at what makes me pick up a book and then do that. But also, a lot of the things I see that are making me pick up books are paid advertising, and that's just not in the budget yet. But it will be one day. We're getting there, and so it's a matter of just try to see what the other authors are doing and figure out what works for me from what they're doing.
Nice. So you've put out multiple books, which
Hmm.
everyone can find over at Amazon, Kindle,
Hmm.
things like that. Are you at a point now where kind of like I have zero visibility to what it looks like? Like, can you make money doing this? Like, is this something where you can, supplement income? Is this like, something where you can kind of like buy a house off of? Like, what does it look like from a self-published, self-produced writer?
So there are authors who pull in six figures a year that are self-published. I've got friends who are six-figure authors a year. I'm not there yet. We're aiming for it one of these days.
Of course.
But no, I think my because my goal for 2024 was originally my goal for last year was originally 3 grand. I beat that, and so I raised my goal. I did not end up meeting the goal. I raised it to, but I got like within $300 of it. So
Nice.
no, I'm not going to buy a house with it, but I made enough for a down payment on a decent car.
Nice.
So, it's a process. It is absolutely feasible, and it's frustrating when you're first getting started because you see people who are making all this money, but it making money takes investing, and you don't have that disposable income until you've got it coming in. So it's kind of trying to balance, what can I afford to put in, what can I afford to lose, and balancing those things. So, but yeah, no, the goal, it's a long term goal, but my goal is to be doing this full time and nothing else in 10 years.
Totally get it. I mean, I'll say this from a podcast perspective. I started this back in July. I'm
Hmm.
definitely in the red. Definitely have
Hmm.
not made any money. It's definitely cost me some money between equipment, between the software, between merchandise that I generally give out and such like that. Do I think I'll make money from it one day? I have no idea. For me, it's just fun. It's a
Yes.
hobby. I mean, for me, I look at it. I'm like, I could definitely spend this kind of money on way dumber things. It makes me happy, and I'm trying to learn from it too. So I think it's good. The fact that you're in the positive, you're making money is fantastic. I mean, you got to start
Hmm.
somewhere, right? So
Yes.
that's awesome, and you've got a long term plan. It sounds like, and then the great thing about the books is, once it's out there, right? It's not like
Hmm.
years ago where you print one run, hope for the best or whatever. I'd imagine on Kindle, it's probably one of those things that could live out there into perpetuity, right?
Hmm. So yeah, no, they're not going anywhere unless Amazon decides to pull my books for some reason. Because there are authors that have had their accounts shut down either for good reasons or wrong reasons, and they have to fight to get those back. But no, as long as Amazon will keep publishing my books, they will be on Amazon.
Are there minimums that it has to sell a certain amount to stay on Amazon, or they'll just
No,
basically
it's nothing like that.
okay,
So Kindle Unlimited, and this is actually I'll do a little stint on pirating
go
is
for it.
bad. Do not pirate things.
Yep.
If your author's books are in Kindle Unlimited, they are contracted exclusively in digital form. They can only be on Kindle Unlimited. That's one
Okay.
reason I'm really eager to get my audiobooks out in the world beyond Amazon to kind of get exposure outside the Amazon bubble. But if you pirate a book that's in Kindle Unlimited and someone's distributing it, you are risking that author's career because Amazon can shut their account down for breach of contract. And
Sure.
so that is my greatest fear is Amazon shutting down my account for something I didn't do, for somebody pirating my books or something to that degree. So,
Are there like barriers in place or ways to kind of prevent that? Is there insurance you can get, or kind of like because you as an author, I'd imagine for myself, not saying I would ever do this,
yeah.
but it seems like that'd be something to be pretty easy to do to either get a book for free to other people or to mess with somebody. Like, are there things that yourself or other authors that can do to prevent that from happening?
There are preventative services. Some of them are successful, some of them are not. And it's kind of, and you can be in the process of taking it down, and Amazon can say, "We don't care. We're taking your books down now." And it's just kind of a
Right.
very thin edge that you've got to walk because of that exclusivity contract.
Got it. Got it. And I
So,
assume, I mean, obviously, if they're hosting it for selling it, Amazon takes their cut. But I mean, that's the same thing
mm,
in any other. business. I mean,
Correct.
Apple takes their
And
30%, stuff like that.
And I like my books being on Kindle Unlimited because, again, I read more books than I can possibly purchase in a month, and I do it for a flat fee and all that. I want my books to be accessible. Don't want people to, spend money they don't have in order to read the books. I want them to be able to enjoy it. I also want them to, hey, this sounds interesting, and my books. Not everyone is going to love my book. Not everyone's going to love your podcast. That's just life. So what I don't want is for somebody to have spent money on something and then regret it. And so I want them to be able to read it on Kindle Unlimited and return it. When either they got to the end, they loved it, they enjoyed it, they returned it, or 100, 200 pages in, this is not for me. Stop there. It's okay. I do it all the time.
Of course. For Kindle Unlimited, is there a limit to how many books someone can take out or read per month, or is that not really
So
a thing?
you can have 20 books checked out at a time. You can return and check out as many new ones as you want. There is no limit.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I'll say,
Yeah.
I'm a little older than you are, but just
Yeah.
as a point of comparison, like when I was younger, I'd buy CDs, right? I'd spend I
Mhm.
worked in a Sam Goody in college. It was like $18 per CD. So
Mhm.
$18 for a CD that had maybe two songs on it that I liked. Fast
Mhm.
forward to today, 10, $15 a month, you've got 100 million albums there. So,
Mhm.
the fact that you have flexibility, you can try things out. And to your point, somebody says, hey, I heard about Katya Summers. I want to check it out. Take a listen, read it. If they like it, that's fantastic. If not, there was no real risk there. Same thing
Mhm.
with music nowadays. People are like, hey, I heard that one song on the radio today. Listen to the whole album. You don't like it? It doesn't matter. It didn't really cost you anything extra, but you get to check it out, which is awesome.
Yes.
Nice.
So, the only
Um,
time I regret the 20 book limit is if I'm going on a cruise and I have no internet for a week. Trying to choose that 20 books is very difficult.
to that point though, is it 20 books per person? Like would Mr. Summers have an account, or like how Prime works, you can do multiple people, you get 40 books then? Or
He
does it
would have
not
to
work
have
that way?
he would have to have a separate subscription
Got it. So
to
we
get
share.
any more.
We
So
share 20.
yeah, when our last cruise we took, it was very difficult to pick what 20 books I wanted to take with me.
That's tough. I get the same thing before I go on a trip. I'm trying to download movies to my iPad, and I'm like, which
Mhm.
movies do I want to watch? Either run out of space or whatever else like that. But we all figure it out. Go for some
Mhm.
some differences across the board. So you've done mostly like romance type of books going backwards. Do you see? So you'd said you want to kind of write forever, right? The next 10, 15, 20,
Mhm.
whatever number of years. Do you see kind of like your views or your genre changing at all, or do you kind of see yourself similar types of stories going forward?
So it's always going to be romance. I can tell you that now. My next 4 projects, well, actually, if you count the 2 shorts I've now added, my next 6 projects are all suspense romance that I have planned out currently in the pipes. We might eventually. I've looked at sports romance, and I've got a romantasy, which is romance and epic fantasy. If you've heard of Fourth Wing or A Court in Thorns and Roses, those are pretty good examples. Um, they where it's the romance and the fantasy are equally important to the plot. I've had one of those that I've been working on since I was like 11. I hope to eventually write it and publish it one day, but I want to know a little bit more what I'm doing and have some more things under my belt before I try to genre hop. So for the foreseeable future, it's going to be suspense romance. Like I said, my next 6 projects, but we'll see after that. It's always going to be romance. There is going to always be a happily ever after, but I don't know what metrics the story is going to take before that point. Yeah,
Gotcha. Knowing Orlando is, I mean, it's a big town, but it's really a small town. Do you ever run into people who might have either heard about you, read your book, anything like that, or you're not really there yet?
It hasn't happened yet, but it's going to one of these days.
Definitely has. I mean, it's a small world, and especially as
Yeah.
we both know in Florida, everybody knows somebody. It's a 7 degrees of separation or 6 degrees separation. It'll
Yeah, no,
definitely happen at some point.
I don't care what anyone says. Orlando is a small town.
It absolutely is. Definitely. So you've got a lot of great stories. As you've said you're in the
Mhm.
process of writing more stuff out. Have
Mhm.
you ever thought, like, as a long-term fantasy, like, would it be like they get made into movies, they get made into shorts, TV shows, or anything like that, or whatever? Like, is that something you've ever like thought about and say, hey, that'd be fantastic if it could, or is that not even something you've even thought about?
I mean, it's nice to dream about, but my stuff is a little niche, if I'm using that word correctly. That I don't think it would. Nothing I've written right now or that I have planned, I think, is a broad enough appeal to succeed as a television show or a movie. But if dream scenario, yeah, no, I want Seaside Cove as a Netflix series. But I think that could be in my future potentially, but with other things. But I don't think it's a realistic goal right now, and I try to aim for things I can hit, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. That makes sense. I mean, getting picked up or selling something like that, I'm sure you have to, the right person has to hear it or find it or see it.
Mhm.
So obviously it's right place, right time, right? So
Right.
somebody could
And
find it on Kindles Unlimited and say, this is fantastic, or you can go 15 years before that person finds it and it just never happens.
And like there's a movie on Netflix I watched 2 months ago that the book was published 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So who knows? It could still be in the future. I will say my sort of medium goal. I want to write forever. I know quite a bit of very awesome independent authors who they've been picked up by traditional publishing houses that they've taken over their paperbacks. And so they take a little bit more of the heavy lifting with, marketing and the covers and all that stuff. And my current dream scenario would be a publishing house picking up my paperbacks, so I would have less work to do and could focus on my writing a little more.
Nice. Have you ever thought about partnering with anybody else on writing in terms of I've seen either movies or TV shows or books that are written by multiple people? Is that a collaboration ever been in your mind, or are you kind of more of a solo type?
I haven't. There are friends that I think could be in our future, but we're not that level of friendship yet that I would trust them with that. But I've done some writing partnerships and stuff. But I will also tell you, Mr. Summers, whether he likes it or not, has collaborated on everything I've written. Even if it's just I'm like, hey, you're way better at description than I am. Can you please fix this paragraph? And he does it.
Nice.
So.
Very cool. Very cool. So we are running later in the show.
Okay.
But before anything else, I want to shout out Mama Summers, by the way. So if Mama Summers is out there listening, how's it going? Good to hear you. Good to know that you're listening.
Yeah.
Another little trivia for anybody out there. The last time that I threw up on a roller coaster was with Katya Summers. It was at this point about 4 years ago. So I did have a show a long time ago talking about how I get motion sick, and as I get older, it's gotten tougher. Katya was there when I threw up on Forbidden Journey at Universal. So little data point for anybody out there.
I felt so bad.
I honestly did it to myself. What did I do? I did Spider-Man. This is at Universal Orlando for anybody listening. I did Spider-Man. I did The Mummy. I did Velocicoaster. I did Hagrid's. And by the time I got to Forbidden Journey, my body was like, you know what, Jeff, you're done. What are we even doing anymore? This is over.
Also, in my defense, I'd never met him before this day in person, so I didn't know how bad the motion sickness was.
Yeah, it was definitely a thing. Again, as people get to know me, they realize that flying with me is not a lot of fun on airplanes. I do tend to get sick sometimes. Roller coasters, I try to do 1 to maybe 2 tops, and even with that, there's certain ones I won't do, like spinny ones, like the Guardians of the Galaxy one at Disney World Epcot. I don't do anymore. I did it the once, and that was a photo finish. But I try to be very picky because I know when I was younger, I would recover very quickly. But at the age now, I'm at 47. It's my day's over. It ruins it. So I'm better off just finding something I really like, or just kind of sitting back and holding everyone's purses.
But since you brought up roller coasters in Universal, I'm going to use that to segue into Rescue Me for a second, if that's okay. So Rescue Me, a lot of the book takes place at a fictional version of a familiar theme park. I call it Epic Studios.
Nice.
Because I think I'm funny. And there's a Halloween-themed event called Nights of Mayhem. And our characters go to Nights of Mayhem. Sky, our leading lady, has never been to a theme park at all, let alone the premier Halloween event in the country. She's never been on a roller coaster. And I honestly had almost more fun designing the theme park than I did with writing some aspects of that book. And then my next series is entirely featured around Epic Studios and Nights of Mayhem.
Nice. Which is actually really, really cool. I mean, who hasn't gone on, haunted houses or rides or whatever and thought to themselves hey, it'd be cool if we did X or Y or Z. Did you map out, or do you have a drawing of what these things would look like? Or is it all just kind of words in your head that you just kind of put down?
So the theme park is mapped out with where all the houses are, with all the scare zones are. I didn't draw out the actual houses themselves just because it's a conga line, and whereas with a theme park I had to draw it, so I'd make sure that I didn't have them accidentally, this ride is next to this ride at this point in the book, but later in the book I accidentally said, it was over here instead. But with the houses, because it's just kind of a conga line, I didn't have to get too specific with that. Yep. But the houses are in very intricate detail, and I'm very proud of some of the references in that book.
Nice. I mean, that sounds like something that could be really cool. Again, I know I kind of talked about it earlier, but in a video or a visual form of some kind at some point. So if anybody out there is listening and wants an idea or wants to, buy the rights to something, definitely hit up Katya Summers and see what you can do there. Anything else you'd like to talk about, or you'd like to promote or plug before we end for the night?
So the anthology piece I mentioned, so it was a charity anthology for animals affected by the hurricanes last year, Milton and Helene. So basically I wrote a piece, I donated it to this charity, to this anthology piece, and all the proceeds that from the both the book sales and the Kindle Unlimited fees go to the animal shelters that are still being impacted from the hurricane damage. And that I wound up writing a prequel for my next series. when I get the rights back to it in a couple months, I'm going to turn it into like a full-fledged novella. But if you want to check it out in the meantime, it's the Holidays Love Anthology. My story in there is called Take the Leap. But it's a great way to read something short. It's a 10,000 word short story. And it's a great way to, introduce yourself to my work and support a good cause at the same time. Plus, there are 35 authors in there. So there are 34 different stories in there besides mine to check out.
That's really cool. So it's a great way to, check out Katya Summers, what you've written, but also to check out other authors that people may not have heard of before either. So also what I thought interesting there too was you said you get the rights back at some point. So is this something where you kind of loaned the rights for the charity? It lasts for a certain amount of time, and then after that certain amount of time, you get it back. You can do whatever you want with it.
Yes. So basically, the way Kindle Unlimited works, if you put your book in Kindle Unlimited, it's locked in there for 90 days. So basically, everyone wrote these pieces for this. We were capped at 10,000 words because we were trying to fit them into paperbacks. Funny story, we wound up having to make it into 2 paperbacks to get it to fit. But we were all capped at 10,000 words, and so we donated these stories. And so basically, when the Kindle Unlimited time frame is up, that 90 days, the rights divert back to me, and that's when I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it into a novella that'll be free, available via subscription to my website to kind of set up on my next series.
So by novella, do you mean, is that like basically a short story in its current form, but like as a standalone, or is that
right now it's a 10,000 word short story. When I get done with it, it should be around a 30,000 words, which is what we consider a novella.
Gotcha. So basically expanding it a little bit.
Yes. Basically, I had to rush through some things to hit that word count and get it. And so basically, I'm going to go back in, and you basically got like a snippet of the first act, a snippet of the third act. And so I'm going to go back in and actually write the first and third act.
Got it. So for clarification, it's not like me in college where I was 7 pages short, so I had to pull the margins in, get rid of contractions, say the same thing multiple times. You're actually going to expand out the story and kind of like be a little more descriptive.
Yes, because I hated how much I had to rush through to get it to fit in my constraints.
Gotcha. And that'll, to your point, you said that'll be just in digital form, or is that something people will eventually be able to get in physical as well?
So for the time being, the only plan is digital. It might eventually go to something someone could get in a paperback, but the plan is literally, it is going to be, we call them reader magnets. Basically, it's a story that you can get literally for free for signing up on my website, and that you can then hopefully you like it and you'll check out the rest of my books.
Nice. And as a reminder, that's KatyaSummers.com. That's KatyaSummers.com. Lots of great content up there. To Katya's point from before, eventually you can get the novella there by signing up. So definitely a great place to bookmark and check out.
Yeah. So that'll probably be out. I get it back in March, so probably sometime in April.
Nice. Speaking of your website, what else is there anything else up there that you want to talk about? Like, is that kind of like the one-stop shop for all things Katya Summers?
So you will find links to the books on Amazon and links to Goodreads, which is a review site if you want to check out the what other people are saying about my books or review themselves. That's the next thing to do for an independent author, just a general FYI. I've also got 2 merchandise shops on there on Redbubble and TeePublic. Yes, those are the 2 I run. So you can get stickers, you can get Seaside Cove's phone cases, all sorts of fun stuff on there. Because Seaside Cove, we're more than just beach, is our catchphrase. So that's all on there. And then you can sign up for my newsletter, and that's where you get updates on my upcoming works, any projects. You'll get to see new releases coming from author friends of mine. And most importantly, pictures of my golden retriever are in every newsletter, which is really, I think, the only reason anyone signs up. But you know what? It works.
Very cool. So definitely a reminder to everybody to go to KatyaSummers.com. A reminder to me, don't put my cup of water so close to me. This is the second time on a podcast I've now spilt my cup of water. So once I'm recording, I'll be toweling up. It's fine. It was half drank, whatever. So it'll be okay. But I need to be less clumsier. Figure out a better way to my cup of water. So we'll be fine. Nice. So yeah, again, reminder to everybody, go check out KatyaSummers.com or check her out on Instagram and all social media at Katya Summers Author. Anything else you'd like to shout out?
Not that I can think of. This has been fun.
Awesome. Well, Katya, it's been a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. For everybody at home listening, reminder, we are available on Instagram at Everybody is a Story Pod, YouTube at Everybody is a Story Pod. Once again, tell everybody we are available on all podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, Apple, wherever you can find podcasts, you could probably find us. My personal Insta is at Seltzer77 for all things Jeff Seltzer. Check me out at jeffseltzer.com. If you want to send me a towel, that'd be great so I can clean up this water once the show is over. Outside of that, just a quick reminder also, PWJ Cards will have an event on January 26th at the Mecca in Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. If you're at the show, come check me out. I'll be recording a live podcast as I'll be sponsoring one of the matches there. This has been a really awesome time. Really appreciate it, Katya. We're going to go weekly going forward. By we, I mean me, not necessarily you, but you're always welcome back, Katya. Hoping to have a few more guests the next couple of weeks. Eventually, probably another solo pod to kind of catch up on some stuff. But as long as as long as this is fun, as long as it's interesting, I'll keep recording. We'll see how it goes. With that said, everybody, hope you have a great day, great week, and we'll take care and talk next week. Thank you.